Aul Hajiko also arose at the end of the Caucasian War and consisted mainly of the descendants of those families who lived here before the Caucasian War, who returned from Kuban and lived in the mountains. Interesting name Hajiko. Some translate it as Hajj or Haji, arguing that it was a mosque and that from here once went to the Hajj. In fact, it's not. The fact is that Hajiko comes from the toponym of the river Hajuko, or Hajuko, which is located above Psezo-Apse, known as Voli. And initially, most of those families that were the first settlers in the village of Hajuko, they came out just from the valley of this river. The fact is that above certain places along the river, Circassians were not allowed to settle after the Caucasian War. They were settled in the places they were appointed to. On the river here upstream, there was a Cossack village, below also a Cossack. And from here and the Aul Hajiko takes its name. Aul Hajiko is located 11 kilometers from the mouth of the Alshe River, on the southern slope of the hill separating it from the village of Kalesh. They are connected in one settlement by the upper road. The history of the appearance of Hajiko is inextricably linked with the history of the village of Kalesh, but most likely a part of the first settlers came a little later from the other side. There is evidence that the first settlers of Hajiko left the Circassian settlement on the river Kudepsta in the village of Psacho. After permission to settle in former places, the inhabitants of the village, now Lesnoye, went out in different groups towards the future villages of Kichmait, Hagapsh and Hajiko. Later first stopped in the valley of the Psezo-Apse river at its confluence with the Hajiko river, east of the settlement of Marino, but due to the severe winter or end of road, they were forced to go further and eventually settled on the site of modern Hajiko. According to one of the versions from the river Hajiko, the modern village got its name. Over time, some of the families evicted in the village of Hajimukokhabal as well as in the township of Mazmei and the village of Dakhovskaya Sarethabal returned here. The last two have the memory of themselves in the names of the main streets of Hajiko. There is also Ubych Street. According to another popular version of the etymology of the name Hajiko, Haji is an honorably prefixed second name to the name of a Muslim who made a pilgrimage, Hajj, to Mecca and Medina, and Ko as the meaning of Voli, Haji Voli, or Hajiv's Voli. Mertukov also leads another more ancient name of this place, Psinedago, with the translation from Shapsuks, a small round well in the forest. Perhaps this name is somehow related to the graves filled with Arabic script in the local service. Aul Hajiko is unique in its ethnic. It is here that two families live, having undoubtedly Ubych origin, Ushho and Cheren. Moreover, the latter were studied by ethnographers in the early 20th century. Unfortunately, today the Cheren family practically lost its name. Only women in the family remained. In addition, researchers in the 1930s recorded the presence of Abkhaz surnames among the inhabitants of the village who are not found today. Whether they were the first settlers who came with the Circassian Shapsuks from the Kudepsta River, Psakhou, or whether there were new residents who came during the Civil War era, it's not known for certain. Hajiko and Kalesh are the only villages that resisted entering the Shapsuk National District. Today, almost 550 people live in Hajiko. There is a school and house of culture in terms of tourism. It's not as developed as in Soviet times, nevertheless the national applied business for tourists is developing quite well today. Thanks to Hajiko, a native of the village, Professor Dalit Naguchev, we know a great deal about Hajiko. He managed to keep the memory of the inhabitants of the village in his book My Aul Hajiko. Aul Got is located one long street on the slope of the ridge above the Aul Kalesh. Initially it was here that the first Circassian Shapsuk settled down. Gradually, the Aul grew to lowland and the population left. Moreover, in the Circassian language, the Aul has a different name, Shajiko, from Shajai, leprosy, and Ko, Voli, Bolk. Kokov cites old-timers about the leprosy raging here. The God means chilling wind ridge, which is justified on the basis of local climatic conditions. However, due to the fact that almost the entire local population was evicted from their historic homeland, the name of many places names during transcription was greatly distorted, and therefore there are no other theories about the origin of the place name. The Uzi Caucasus expert Tverdy, who studied the toponyms of the Western Caucasus, assumes that the toponym goes back to the Circassian Lagat, the same name as one of the mountain ranges on the left bank of the river Ashi. According to Mirotukov, the name of the toponym is based on Circassian words Ligo burned and G old, i.e. old ashes. Kokov adheres to the same opinion in the book Adigi Circassian Toponymy. The whole history of the village is directly connected with the villages of Hadjiko and Kalish. Today, no more than 50 people live here, mostly old-timers. From here, the road goes to the Psezo River, to the village of Khagapsh, only 1.5 hours on foot. On Main Street, there is an old house of the beginning of the 20th century, built in the traditional manner. Did you know about your family that it is from the Ubivs? In short, along year 19 years in Sochi. When I first started working as a head, we were called in Sochi to a meeting in the management of the economy. They hung a map there, a large map. I approached, I see there is the river Ushho, the Richishho, a tributary of Sochi, and then it went from there. In 1991, or I do not remember exactly, or in 1992, Nemik came and we learned. And how did he know? His cousin or brother worked in Maikop, he lives and now works. They came to him there. He began to ask about Ushho lived in Maikop or not.
Насчет Ушхо. Проживает в Майкопе или нет. И каким-то образом
somehow they went to my older sister, she's in Maikop.
Она в Майкопе.
And my younger brother, he's in the University Candidate of Physical and Mathematical Sciences. He has been working there since the late of 1980. He came for the first time, met each other, then a year later, and only 5 times came to my father. Here is this photo. There is a lot to see. It was the 90s. I understand that they have data there, that they are Ubif. Of course, in general, he wrote the whole pedigree. It turns out that his great-great-grandfather and his brothers.
И наш дед, прадед, прапрадед, они родные братья. Потом идет Хусейн,
Hussein goes after him, then Bas,
потом Бат. А я еще, мы даже не знаем, что мы убыхи. Мои вот эти тети, вот, которые там вот на фотографиях
he showed and told about them. He also says that at the very beginning of the Caucasian War,
Кавказской войны,
our grandfather
это уже ихний прадед получается. Ихний дед
turns out grandfather Haflach.
Хепш.
There were all 3 brothers. 2 brothers went to Turkey and Kleb stayed here. This is our grandfather, and he described everything, our genealogy. And the 3rd brother, in my opinion, Ibrahim, he is one of those who live in Juge. Here they are from this branch. But Namik doesn't know their connections. They met, but he only knew that my cousin lived there. He spoke on the phone in the early 90s 2 times. He wanted to move, but then he fell ill.
вот тот, который хотел. Не все же хотят заниматься
wanted, not everyone wants to do it. Maybe 10 brothers and sisters, only one of them will root for their kind, for their family.
Свой род, понимаешь, вот, я сам
I
уже
myself
вывод
have
сделал, вот,
already drawn conclusions. Here I am, already 68 years and older in 60 years, in my own way, and for others I know who is passionate about. So if not given, it's visible.
Это, видимо, мы
We blame a particular person. Why you're not passionate about your family story, but this is not evident from the beginning.
Не заложено свыше, видимо.
Да, вероятно.
Да.
Мало таких.
Вот даже вот пример.
Here's a fresh example. This one, Namik. He's an older brother. He has an older brother, which industrialist. He was the eldest, the poorest peasant. Then there are
чисто крестьянин был. Потом еще другие братья, сестры.
other brothers, sisters, but he and his younger sister
младшая
is
сестра,
the youngest in the family.
старше его, конечно. Он самый младший в семье. Вот эти
These are the brother and sister of the whole family. There are
всего это
9 or 6 or 10 in the family.
Где-то у отца записано. Вот они только вот Намык и
Only they, Namik and Fatia, and they know and passionate about their family story.
Знает и болеет и так далее, и так далее. Даже
Even
когда
when my father and my cousin who lives in Tuapse are married to Napso, she was
она в
in
Туапсе живет, замужем за Напсо на 40-го года.
1940. In 1998, she went to Turkey to visit Namik. He showed everything there.
Он им все показал. Когда он
I
приехал, я
didn't
даже не
even
знал.
know
Я из
when
Лазаревской
he
приехал,
arrived. I came from Lazarevskaya
звонил.
watching the phone ring, long distance phone. I pick up the phone, this
Это, говорит,
Fatih
Фатия
from Turkey
с
calling,
Турции
wondering
звонит,
if they have arrived or not.
интересуется, она, приехали или доехали или нет. Я не
I
знал,
didn't
что...
know what to say, just so that
Я
she
сказал просто, чтобы она не
wouldn't
да,
worry they
приехали.
arrived.
Оказывается,
It
когда он
turns
приехал,
out
я же
that
на
when
работу,
he
а он
arrived,
слышал,
I was
когда,
still at
племянник
work, and he
женился.
went down there. His nephew got married. He went to visit.
Пошел туда, да, проведать. Вот он, она
She
следом
left call
позвонила из
from
Турции.
Turkey, a completely different level of tension.
Совсем другой уровень, да?
Да,
Внимание.
да.
Да, согласен.
И вообще, вот, отец и
General, the father and sister told she's exactly like our
она
like
точно
aunt.
похожа на нашу покойную тетю.
This is
Это
the
самая
oldest aunt
старшая
was. The youngest father was a
тетя была.
was in the family.
Отец самый младший был в семье, а та
And the
самая
oldest
старшая.
one
Это
was in the
Володя
village
Храпов
Harapch lived.
Она
She was born in
1899
1899
900
or
года рождения.
1900. Sham was her name.
Шам звали
That's exactly
её.
what he
Вот
says.
точно говорит,
Exactly like.
точно похож. Похоже, вот это Фатия
This Fatih
точно
is like
похоже
Sham.
на Шам. Ну, это видно, это кровь
It can
одна.
be seen.
Да, да.
The blood is one. Ault Hagapsh on the river Psizopse in the headwaters from Lazarevskaya. One of these rather old owls was formed in Voli. In general, the Shapsuks used to live in almost solid houses until the end of the Caucasian War. After the Caucasian War,
сплошными аулами до конца Кавказской войны. После Кавказской войны, после их
after the
поселения,
eviction, one of the first to
одними
return
из
was
первых,
the
кто
inhabitants
вернулись,
of
были
the
жители
village of
как раз таки
Hagapsh.
аула
There
Хагапш.
were
Это были
the first
первые
families.
семьи,
Then on this
Тогда на этом
place
месте стоял
stood a military
военный
cordon
кордон,
called the Waters
назывался
of
он
God,
Божьи воды.
and with the
И
cordon
вот при
they
этом
settled.
кордоне они и
And in
поселились.
the
Это 1870-е
1870s,
годы.
the village was
Так
subsequently
образовался
formed.
впоследствии
The word
аул.
Tchagabsh
Ну,
is
слово
translated
Тхагабш
differently.
переводит
Sometimes that
по-разному. Иногда
this
есть
is
версия,
God's
что
water,
это и есть
simply
Божьи воды,
Circassian,
просто
but it's not.
по-адыгски.
Today,
Сегодня
it's a
это
lively
что-то
village,
жилой
young,
аул,
here the
очень
same
молодой
situation
аул. Здесь
as in the Malay
какая-то такая
Psirskho
ситуация,
opposite.
как в Малом
That is,
Псирского,
many of
обратная.
older generation has already
Старшее
left,
поколение
but the youth
уже
have remained.
поуходило, а
They
молодежь
live
вот
here
осталась
and
здесь,
do not
живут
leave from
и,
here.
в
That is
общем-то,
such a young enough
не уезжают
aul.
отсюда. То есть это такой достаточно молодой аул сегодня.
It's located in
Находится он в
such a
таком
picturesque
живописном месте.
place.
Здесь многие
Here many people from Russia come
в
by
целом
there.
люди приезжают,
All
покупают
houses,
себе дома,
quite a
очень тихое,
peaceful place.
спокойное место.
Tourists here too.
Туристы здесь
Here's a
тоже
brief
есть.
story.
В общем, такая вкратце история.
Old Tchagabsh is located in the Psyzopse River, Psyshu Valley, 8 kilometers from its mouth and the village of Lazarevskaya. The road along the river valley is very picturesque and passes by the villages of Tyanovka and Alexeyevka, the former settlements of the largest clan of the Circassian Shapsuk, Goyam. The aul is located in a hollow surrounded on all sides by mountains. Before the Caucasian War, the auls were located mainly along the slopes of the hills, and the lowlands were used as pasture. In the distant part of the village, a small stream flows, which is spilled so sharply and strongly, dragged 2 meter boulders with which it broke the walls of houses. Today there is again a tourist gorge with a waterfall. Aul hangs over a rock with splashes of black rich minerals. In Soviet times there was established there huge deposits, but didn't dare to mine because for this they would have to evacuate everything and blow up a whole ridge. The history of the aul has 2 periods of foundation. The first Circassian Shapsuks who returned here after the Caucasian War in the 1870s were from the Circassian village on the Psakha River from the Khalkuchi. Here they settled as a Russian military post Bozhyi Vody. The Turkish troops in Sochi, in which there were many muhajirs from the Circassians, then actively called for the Circassian Shapsuks to revolt, and only the inhabitants of the village decided to join the Turks. After the Turks were driven off the coast, the inhabitants, in fear of repression, fled again in the mountains and were later evicted to the Kuban region. The abandoned aul was noticed by hunters and shepherds from the auls of Ligotch and Khadjiko, who moved here again, founding the Aul Tchagabsh. Their descendants today live here, as well as part of those who returned from the Kuban. In the 19th century, this aul was called Tchagabsh and seized a large territory along both banks of the river up to the modern village of Marino. Further along the left bank, the village of Shemsi was located upstream. The name Tchagabsh Mertukov derives from the Tchagabsh family. Sometimes they translate literally as a place of worship to God. The sources of the Caucasian War period contain the form of the toponym Tchaps, and the corresponding Russian name of this area God's Waters. The Russian name of God's Waters legend connects with the military hospital, whose ruins were still visible in 2015 in the village. Allegedly, the soldiers that were treated there went to a small stream which still flows here. The water from the stream eased their suffering, for which they called it gods. Since 1932, the official name is Aul of Kirov. Tchagabsh suffered greatly during the Stalinist repression. According to denunciations, many men were sent to Kazakhstan with their families and did not return. In the 1990s, Aul residents restored information about them and erected a large monument with the names of victims of repression. The ancient pagan rituals of the Circassian Shapsuks associated with the challenge of rain and well preserved in Tchagabsh. Khansaguasha or Princess Spade was recently held in the village. Also in the forest is an ancient tomb of a naughty shepherd boy killed by lightning, around which rites are also held. The young men of the village Tchagabsh, before leaving for the army, conduct a ceremony at the grave for good luck and as a talisman, and after returning it is completed. Today, a little more than 170 people live in the village. Schools and no permanent club, children study in the village of Lazarevskaya. The aul, one single untouched mosque of the early 20th century, was preserved. which today only works out of necessity. Here the house of the museum, in the form of a traditional suitcase and shops dwelling, there are cafes and various entertainments for tourists. But the village itself, despite the apparent activity and youth, turns into a holiday village. Most of its residents today prefer to live and work in Lazarskaya and come to Tkagapsh on weekends and holidays. Nevertheless, people live and work here. There are even their own writers and poets.
Аул Большой
Аул
Кичмай,
Большой Кичмай,
как
like
Малый
Малый
Кичмай,
Кичмай,
имел до
it had a name
1920
before
года название
1920,
Общий
a name
Кичмай для
common
обоих сторон
to
реки
both
Шахэ.
sides of the Shahé
Большой
River,
Кичмай,
Большой Кичмай,
тоже
is the
Шахачей,
Shahachey
то
that
есть
is
в
on the
солнечной
sunny
стороне
side.
находящейся
It was formed in
стороны реки Шахэ.
1870 when from the
Он
settlement of
образовался в
Psaho. The
1870-х
first
годах,
Caucasians who
когда
had
из
already settled
поселения
after the
Псахо, первые
Caucasian War came here from
после
the
Кавказской
first families
войны,
who after the war returned from the mountains and from the
уже
Kuban.
черкесы. Он появился
They
здесь
then
из
lived
первых семей,
somewhere
которые
in the Kuban,
возвратились после
somewhere in the
Кавказской
village of
войны.
Psahe,
Гор из
on the river
Кубани.
Kudepsta. The
Проживали
first
они
such
на реке,
Caucasian
тогда
village
где-то
from
на
the
Кубани,
first
где-то в
revived
поселке
Shapsuk
Псахе на
settlements.
речке Кудепста первом, таком черкесском поселке из возродившихся шапсукских поселений. И вот сюда они
And
переселились в
here they
1870-х
moved in the
годах. Теперь вы с ними
1870s, the
основали
first
этот
families and
аул.
founded this
Сегодня аул
village.
Большой Кичмай
Today
один
the
из
Большой
крупнейших
Кичмai aul is one of
из
the
тех,
largest
которые
of
находятся в
all in the
Лазаревском районе.
Lazarevsky district.
Здесь
Here the most developed
самая
tourist
развитая
industry of
туристическая
all. It
отрасль
has
из
more than
всех.
25 years
Здесь эта
as
отрасль
it
здесь уже
develops.
более 25
Tourists go
лет.
here massively.
Как она
Everything
развивается.
works for
Сюда
tourists.
массово
Summer.
туристы едут. Все, в общем-то, работает на туриста именно летом.
Well, the
Ну, а
details
подробности
see
дальше.
there in the video. Aul Большой Кичмай, a large and long aul located in two parts along the left bank of the river Shahé. It starts from the village Achintam, about 3 kilometers from the mouth of the river, and ends with tourist houses 15 kilometers away in the most popular tract of the region, 33 waterfalls. The Malый Кичмай, once a separate settlement in Soviet years, to the Caucasian War, the entire valley of the river Shahé from the mouth of the to the headwater was densely populated. One of the largest clans, the Mugu, is represented today only in the Gea and in the diaspora. In 1876, under the supervision of one of the companies of the Caucasian Battalion, on the right bank of the Shahé River, several families of Hakuchis were taken as a prisoner and settled, who were hiding in the headwaters of the Kudepsta River. The first settlers of the new village were the family names Kobyle, Kobzh, Khusht, and Guashers. The aul was registered as part of the Sochi section of the Black Sea district. It consisted of 47 yards with a total population of 309 people. At the beginning of 1901, there were 174 permanent residents and 92 temporary residents in the village. The toponym Kichmai in translation means smithy or smith's locality. According to the other data, the Circassian toponym Kichim with the prefix a, this in the Circassian language indicates membership. Given the presence of dome-like forges similar to the forges of the Ashen Valley, the history of metallurgy and the names of the localities associated with it are the same. Shahé, which means Valley of the Shahé. The geographical term was previously designated the entire valley adjacent to the river and was a collective designation for all Shapsuk villages, which until the end of the Caucasian War stretched along the river for tens of kilometers up to the gorge. According to Meretukov, the Circassians Shapsuks call the Malay Kichmai, Shahachey, Tsiku or Thako. The latter terms means a place not lit by the sun, shadow side. Malay Kichmai is not illuminated by the sun before noon. Большой Кичмай or Shahachey Ishho, called the Tigago, sunny side. The northeastern part of the Большой Кичмай is called Guashikhabel, the village of Madam. Interesting, it is in the part that the most ancient memorable finds from the 18th century Arab script are found, and even the whole ceramic pipeline going from the next hill. The names of the quarters are preserved in the aul. Гуашухабль, Гвашев's quarter, Хуштхабль, Hush's quarter, Muguhablь, quarter of Mugu. Shehepekal, as the Shapsuks called Golovinka, a resort settlement at the mouth of the Shahe, inhabited partly by the Circassian population, came from the village of Большое Псиушхо. Shahe is the name of the river Pe, estuary, Kala, fortress at the mouth of the Shahe.
В основном из выходцев Большого Псиушхо. Шахе — название реки, а П — устье, то есть получается как крепость в устье Шахе. Там действительно находился когда-то Головинский форт, построенный в 1830-е годы.
Golovinka grows a huge tulip tree in Iran, very rare in Europe. Its flowers are like tulips, the tree they call Pegambadshig, the tree of the Prophet. The Shapsuks have a legend about this tree. Once it says the Prophet Sozresh crossed the Black Sea, reached the coast where it's now Shahepekal. The Prophet thrust his staff into the ground, took a bath and proceeded to Nemes. As the Prophet performed his Nemes, a miracle tree grew from stag staff. Regarding the age of the tree, there are constant disputes. Some believe that Nikolai Raevsky, the head of the Black Sea Coastal, planted it in Golovinsky fortification in the late of Bolshoi Kichmai. Today is the most tourist village of the whole villages of the Circassian Shapsuks. The tourist business has been here has been actively developing since the early 19th, thanks to a public man and entrepreneur Isaac Mizov. He and his comrades were the first to clear the gorge of 33 waterfalls, where there is a Wall Street, gorge, the restaurants, cafes and souvenir shops. Thanks to him, the site of the tea plantation has been preserved, which today is actively attracting passing tourists thanks to the new owners from Adamchai. In the village are actively held dance parties. Such halls are now almost a dozen, as well as restaurants and cafes. Masses with tourists around the world go in a continuous stream from early spring to late autumn. Today, almost the gateway to the Bolshoi Kichmai is the small village of Akhin Tam, with the name of which is connected with the legend of Akhin, which I told about in video of the village of Tsipka. It's believed that Akhin died at this place. It's also believed that it was along this valley that the sacred cow rose up approximately to the northern village of Salochaul, where the solemn holidays in honor of Akhin took place.
Примерно до современного поселка Салохаул, где и проходили торжественные праздники в честь Ахына.
Another interesting place is Maguhabal. Today this place is not residential, located between the last houses of Bolshoi Kichmai and 33 waterfalls. Today there is a house and garden and an apiary in the clearing, but before the Caucasian War there was a central owl of the name Mugu, and ethnographer Leonid Lavrov cites a legend about Mague Mustafa, the legendary dragon winner living in this owl. The old man said that Mustafa had two brothers. One of them, while swimming, was eaten by a shark, and the second one died during the storming of the Golovinsky fortifications. Having come to the dragon's den, Mustafa tied a ball to the oak, and the dragon, chasing the ball, wound around the tree. Mustafa took advantage of this and slaughtered the dragon, but he himself drowned in his blood. This oak tree still stands along the road from the big Kichmai to Golovinka. In the same place, a hornbeam grows in the trunk of which, as the old man used to say, Mustafa's Magu-stepped sword was visible. Now it allegedly grew into a tree. Today this oak is no longer there. It decayed. In his place, Kanspoli planted a new white-leaved oak tree. There is a monument to the victims of the Caucasian War located in the middle of the village. On the picture is cliff above the Shakha River. It is adjacent to the monument to those who died in the Greek-Patriotic War and to the hero of the Soviet Union, Ademir Achmizov. Try to remember, our hand simply sounds A, Tuz, C, Hair, C. Understand? Yes. The Circassian table with 3 legs we call Ane, hand, name, I. What I see, that I take. To remember well, we must remember the city of Anapa. Ane, table, and Pere first. Anapa citizens know our translations and translated it in their own way. They translated it at the edge of the table. The circle says a lot. There is no place of honor, you are all equal. You will turn off the highway to Kichmai, Kushe Forge, May Place, Blacksmith's Place. You will go to the truck, turn to Sochi, turn to Jubga, Jubga literally translated to Wine Place, blowing in the direction of Novorossiysk. Have you been in Krasnaya Polyana? No, no.
Нет.
When
Вот
you
когда
go, you will
поедете,
climb
будете
up the
подниматься
mountain,
на
you
гору,
will
вы
climb
поднимаетесь на
Aigу.
Аигу.
Aigу is
Аиг
not a
это
good
нехороший.
place. Bgi
Бг
is a
это
ridge.
хребет.
When
Когда
you
будете
go up there,
подниматься
look
туда, смотрите
carefully at the
внимательно на
slopes.
склоны, какие
What
там
kind of mountains
горы
are there? On the contrary,
Напротив
Achishho is a
Ачишхо.
goat.
Ача
Acha is a
это
goat.
козел.
Shho is a
Ачиш
mountain goat,
горный
a big
козел,
goat,
большой
yes.
козел,
The
да?
place
Место,
where
где водились
wild
туры.
bulls lived, okay?
Вам понятно?
All these
Все
names
эти
are in
названия идут на
the
адыгском
Circassian
языке.
language. I am the
Я
Adig
Адыг
Shapsug,
Шапсук,
an ethnic
этническая
group
группа
of the
адыгов, столица
Circassians. The
Туапсе.
capital is Tuapse.
Тон в Англии идут у нас тут.
Pse is
Это
water.
вода.
Tuapse,
Две
two
реки или
rivers,
город
a city
между
between
ними.
two rivers.
В
In
Лазаревской
Ladrskaya
реке
river
Туапсе.
is Tuapse.
У нас
We
есть
have the towns
местечки
of Makopse,
Макопсе,
Shepsi,
Шепси,
Psebe,
Псебе,
Psebei.
Псебай, одним словом
In
так.
one word,
Куда бы мы ни
wherever we
ездили,
go in the
в
direction of
сторону
Sochi,
Сочи, в сторону
Krasnodar, we
Краснодара, в
will
конце,
often
в
be
начале
in
будет
the
написано
names
Псе.
at the beginning
Там, где
Pse.
Псы, везде
Pse,
вода.
water, is everywhere,
Кроме
except
Pepsi
Pepsi
и
and
chips,
chips
это не наши
are not
слова.
our words. If you
Если вы
ever heard
когда-то
the
будете
word
слышать слово
Circassians
«атыги»,
and the
надо-
concept
а
of
понятие
Circassian
«атыги» это понятие
is
объективное, как
objective,
понятие
like the slaves.
Это
This is the Republic
Адыгея,
of Adygea,
адыгейцы,
Adygea,
Кабардино-Балкария,
Kabardino-Balkaria,
только
Kabardins,
кабардинцы,
Карача-Черкесия, Circassians, and this is one people, with one language and one culture. We call ourselves Adigs, in the world we are called Circassians. You knew us from classical literature, be it Lermontov, Tolstoy, Pushkin, like the Circassians. One people, two names. Do not be surprised. There is no people in the Caucasus at all that would not have two names. We say Ossetians live in Ossetia. What does the Republic of Alania have to do with it? Alania TV and radio company, Alania football club, Alania team. Throw a stick, you will get into Alan. Armenians we speak. In Sochi, this is the main nationality, but they don't call themselves that. Haya say.
Хая.
Hayastan, Republic of
Это
Armenia.
Республика Армении.
Tatarstan. Stan is the
Понятно,
country.
Дагестан это страна.
Dagestan, Dagi is mountains,
Даги
Stan is
это
country.
горы, Стан это
Dagestan
страна.
in translation a country of
Страна гор.
mountains.
Все
All
народы
nations
позвать,
too,
кроме нас, черкесов,
except
мы
for us.
другие.
Circassians, we are three. I explain.
Объясняю.
Kabardians
Кабардинцы
live in
живут
Kabarda.
кабардинцы.
They are Adigs.
Они же
They are
адыги, они
Circassians.
черкесы.
I am Adig and
Я
Shapsuk
адыг, я
and
шапсук,
Circassian.
черкес.
Do you
Вам
understand?
В
Ladrski
Лазаревском
district,
районе,
where
где
we
мы
are
сейчас с вами
now,
находимся,
began to be
районом
called
стал
so
называться с
from June
27
27,
июня
1945.
1945 года. Что
What
было
was
всеми
3 days
раньше в
earlier in
Москве?
Moscow?
Великий
Great
парад
Victory
Победы.
Parade. My father is
Отец
a
участник
participant
Парада
in the
Победы.
Victory Parade,
Приезжает, если
arriving
спросишь,
and asking
задает
questions
вопрос, что тут
in
налепили на нас,
indignation.
тут не было.
What did you do here while we were gone?
Понятно, да?
It's clear, yes? The word
Слово
Circassian
черкес
is a
это
foreign
не
name.
название.
To the question, who
Но
lives in
просто
Germany?
живет в
You speak
Германии, мы
Nemцы.
говорим немцы. Я в
I'm
Германии
in
бываю,
Germany
ради
when I'm,
хохмы
for the
почетно
sake of
задаю вопрос.
laughter,
Немцы,
asking
как
the
вы тут
question,
поживаете?
Nemцы, how are
И
you
сразу
doing here?
начинается,
And
да,
immediately
сидите
begins,
сколько-то.
what
Какое
time is it
сегодня
today?
время?
When
Петле
Peter the
сказали,
First
до сих пор
invented
говорит.
still speaks. The
Слово
word
немой, слово
Nemec
русское.
means dumb.
А слово
Everything
немой
comes from
идет
it.
все. Когда до Петра Первого заезжали, вообще
So
немцами называли не
Nemцы
только людей
means
из Германии.
people from Germany,
Португалец,
Portugal, Spain,
испанец,
Italy,
итальянец, не
just those
говорили
who didn't
по-русски.
speak Russian. Немецкая
Немецкая
свобода,
свобода.
settlement.
Учи русский
The only
язык,
Russian
будешь
we will
разговаривать.
talk. With the
Немцы
Nemцы we figured
разобрались.
out. With the Circassians we will understand now. As for
Значит,
Germany,
Германии.
in the worst
Значит, они
case,
себя
they
в
call
худшем
themselves
случае
Deutschland,
называют Deutschland.
and they have a
Германцы, а так
division
поселено
in
в
the lands
Саксонии,
Saxony,
Баварии. В
Bavaria.
Германии 4
There
диалекта.
are 4 dialects in
И у нас
Germany,
тоже
and we
свои
also
диалекты
have
имеются.
our own dialects. By dialects,
По
I can
диалекту я могу
determine
определить, приехал с
where you
Майкопа,
come
Снальска или
from
Черкесска.
Maikop, Nalchik, or Cherkess.
Ал-Малый
Al-Malik
Кичмай,
Kichmai, like Bolshoi Kichmai, was settled for the second time in the 1870s. His name used to be called simply Kichmai, and then in the 20s they were divided. To understand, on the other side is Bolshoi Kichmai, on this side is Malый Kichmai. In Circassian, Bolshoi Kichmai is called Shechechei, and Malый is called Shechechei Tsiku. This translates as the sunny side and the shadow side, so Malый Kichmai has another name, Khako, the son of mountain, which shields him from the sun. And indeed, the shadow side is here.
Сын горы, которая закрывает его от солнца. Действительно, теневая сторона на этой стороне. И здесь
Unlike Bolshoi Kichmai, tourism is not so developed here, it's almost absent here. The only place is the Shagdi stable, which we will visit, and so a quite peaceful place where Circassian Shapsuks live today. And this village is lively and developing, it's close to the highway, so there are no special problems. Al-Malik Ichmai located on the right bank of the river Shaheh, 5 kilometers from the mouth. His story as well is inextricably linked with the history of the Bolshoi Kichmai. Before the construction of a normal bridge over the Shaheh, residents went to the Bolshoi Kichmai across the river on special steel. Before the Caucasian War, there was a zone of mixed living between Circassian Shapsuks and Ubykhs. Therefore, the only street of the village is called Ubykhs. From Malik Kichmai, there are good views of the Bolshoi Kichmai. Among the first settlers of the village were families Kliv, Nibo, Kuadze, and Shkhalakhovs. In 1920s, Vashevs moved from the Bolshoi Kichmai. In 1945, the Sizo and Tokh families moved from the village of Hadjiko, Ujuhu, and Mamkho families from the Kuban. There are also rare surnames like Usi or Kojishao. Little more than 20 people live in Malik Kichmai today. There are no schools. The children study at the Bolshoi Kichmai, but in comparison with its sunny neighbor, the shadowy Kichmai is quiet and calm and does not like tourist foods. The school of Bolshoi Kichmai is one of the best. Modern children learn Circassian language here on a permanent basis. They're the only one among the Shapsuk villages. The stable of the Circassian horse breed Shakdi, which receives tourists, is located here. Today, children even ride horses here, whom doctor prescribes natural therapy. Thanks to enthusiasts from the Khusht family, the stable today has become a real attraction of the owl. On this, the Shapsuk expedition series came to an end. I would like to thank all the spectators, everyone who helped our expedition, raise funds, supported us in every way, helped with information, helped us live in these villages. I would like to express special thanks to Murat Tuparov from Tuapse, with whom we lived for almost a week and worked in the Tuapse district without a headache. About where to live, and despite all the events related to the flood, despite the personal family events of a good plan, which took a lot of time of our host who visited. He took the time to help us, and we are very grateful to him. We're also grateful to Timur from the village of Kalish, who also provided housing, told a lot of interesting things, advised us to the people. He also studied the Voli Asha for almost a week, being there in his village of Kalesh. Many thanks to all those informants with whom we met. Thanks also to the public man Madin Shkhalakov from the village of Aguy Shapsuk and the Nebug administration who provided us with contacts. Many thanks to all those who met in the culture houses of the villages, all these wonderful teachers and social activists who are very well managed by these small clubs, develop culture there, allow children not to forget their language and organize dance events for them. Позволяют детям не забывать свой язык и организуют танцевальные мероприятия для них. Special thanks to the Ladrovsky Center of National Cultures, and more specifically to its Circassian branch in the village of Ladrovskaya, which gave us great meeting on November 4th. A lot of us stalls showed up and were just a wonderful, pleasant discovery. И, в общем-то, просто были для нас таким замечательным, приятным открытием. I really hope to meet again. I recommend everyone to visit this center if you're in the Lazarevsky district, especially since they often organize various events, even international ones. And I would like also like to express my personal thanks to Evgenia Gubayeva, Ludmila Shkayeva, Murat Tamov, Bastoy and Zar for supporting our project. That's all. And then follow the news. We will prepare a book. There will be a presentation. I hope that in 6 cities it will definitely pass, along with the photo exhibition. Just follow the news on Instagram, on YouTube, Facebook, Vkontakte, where it's more convenient for you. Until new meetings. Bye, everyone.